Forget your former managers, ignore the ex-pros. As football fans, we all know the real experts drink in pubs. It's funny, it's argumentative, and often it's just plain wrong. Welcome to the Foss Arms Public House and welcome to the Leicester City Pubcast. Hello everyone, welcome to an exultant Foss Arms celebrating Leicester City's fantastic 5-0 win against Sheffield United. And to join me this week, we've got my two good friends as usual. Killer, good evening.
Good evening, Tim.
And Norm, good evening.
Good evening, Tim.
And we really are in great form this evening in the Foss Arms. The Trump Wales IPA is in full flow. And I noticed that there's even a couple of pints of old pizzle out that people desperately celebrating this 5-0 win that we had. And Killer, you're going to talk to us a little bit about how that transpired and how we put the bottom club to the sword.
Yeah, it's a good weekend for Leicester City, wasn't it? I thought all the rest of the results pretty much went for us. I've got to say I'm a supporter that's looking behind me rather than looking forward. I'm happy for Man City and Man United to beat our competitors because I just want to see Champions League football down at the King Power. I think that will be an absolutely incredible achievement. And let's not forget as well, ladies and gentlemen, that if you take out the championship winning season, if that season had never happened, if we had finished mid-table, can you just imagine just how excited we would be getting now about the prospect of Champions League football? We can almost reach out and touch it. It was a great time to play Sheffield United, as we all know. We're sort of approaching mid-March, and this is a team... Well, there's first round mastermind contestants have got more points than Sheffield United. It's a team really on its backside. And just to compound matters, shortly before the kickoff, they'd obviously decided to dispense of the services of the best manager they've had in a generation. I can only assume that their board were most dissatisfied at the fact that they'd only got 2 consecutive promotions and a 9th place finish in the Premier League. I'm sure they were desperate for Champions League football. So we played a team absolutely at the right time. We're still obviously missing a couple of key players. It was great to see Perez back. And it was really nice to see, whatever you think about 3-5-2, it was really nice to see for the first time our 3 stellar centre-backs all lining up together. Alas, they weren't tested, and I'm struggling to think of any ball that Kasper Schmeichel had to handle during the course of the 90 minutes. It started off fairly slowly for Leicester City, but once we kicked into gear, it became absolutely unstoppable. I think the only surprise really for me, Tim, was that it was only 5. I mean, the chances that were missed, we've all got to admit, unfortunately, all of us, we're just going to have to take a moment and just take a gasp of air and realise that Jamie Vardy will never score again for Leicester City. It's never going to happen. But you can't moan when he gets 3 assists, and you also can't moan when he played with the enthusiasm and vigour that he played with on Sunday afternoon, because it was brilliant. And I get the feeling that when he's playing now with Iheanacho as a 2 up top, that I think Rodgers has basically said to him, you've got licence to move. Don't just stay on the centre-back shoulder. Do what you want. And you could see this was a guy that looked like he caught a bit of match fitness for once. He looked sharp. He didn't look sharp in front of goal, obviously, but he looked, the rest of the pitch, I thought he played very, very well. Absolutely thrilled for Kelechi. I really am thrilled. I'm the first person to say I wrote him off, but I suspect there's a few other 10,000, 30,000 or so other Leicester fans that had written him off. I'm absolutely thrilled for the boy because actually I think he looks like he's a nice lad. He looks like his heart and soul's in it. And I don't know about you guys, I had a bit of a lump in my throat when he scored his 3rd because I could see that wave of emotion. This boy had tears in his eyes, and I think he had tears in his eyes because that's how much it meant to him. You know, this is a guy that's obviously lost sleep about his form. He isn't somebody that's just been picking his wages up and going home in his Ferrari and he can't be bothered. This is somebody that obviously cares about his form, cares about how he presents himself, cares about the football club. So it was absolutely brilliant to see him walking off with the match ball, great to see Perez having had a really good game as well. And it was just a 5-star great Sunday afternoon. We've had a few stinkers. This wasn't one of us. We're running out of games now, and we're in absolute pole positions for this Champions League spot.
Yeah, it's great to be running out of games and where to start with all of this, but clearly, Norm, really only one place to start with. One, Kelechi Iheanacho.
Yeah, what Killer was saying there about Iheanacho caring, I think he's absolutely spot on. The lad has gone through the mill a bit, hasn't he? And we've all kind of written him off, but he's looking like a different player. And I think, like Killer alluded to Vardy as well. I think Vardy playing up top with him is really, really helping him. I mean, Vardy was sensational yesterday. Iheanacho was superb, but the fact that Iheanacho cares so much, what I also liked is it's very, very clear the team really care about him as well.
Yeah,
and yeah. I think that was evident, and it sounded like they did some better singing and celebrating in the changing room afterwards with regards to his first Premier League hat-trick and something like that. I mean, let's remember, Iheanacho's been with us for a number of years now, but he's still a really young lad, and that must have made a world of difference to him. And I think because of that, we are going to see him kick on now and perhaps be the player that we always kind of hoped he would be, but never felt he was ever going to make it. So, just a magic game for him yesterday and the team, even though it was against a team that have given up, absolutely, like you said, Killer.
It's interesting, Killer, isn't it? Because you said in your initial summary there around Iheanacho, he seems like a really nice guy. And it really struck me that he's been at the club 4 years. I listened to his post-match interview, and I think it's the first time I've really heard him speak, and his personality really came across. And by the way, I don't know if you guys saw that. What another incredible post-match interview from a Leicester player. Absolute credit to him. It was full of emotion. Very different to the Maddison one a few weeks ago, which got tons of plaudits. But it says to me as well that the club is being run, and particularly with credit to Rodgers, Killer, being run in the right way, putting players out who talk in such a fantastic way that's absolute credit to football.
You just can't knock the way the football club's being run, though, can you? Top to bottom. There's very, very little that happens at the football club which is of any sort of disrepute. I mean, I watched the North London derby yesterday, and obviously Abanyan's not played because there's a disciplinary. We don't get any of that at Leicester City. It's just an extremely well-run football club. I think it starts right at the top with the owner and obviously permeates down to the fact we have just got a great manager, and he's a manager, Brendan Rodgers, that I suspect that the way that he approaches everything, he never gets too high, never gets too low. I suspect he's somebody that always models the right behaviours. That permeates down to the players, and this is why you hear a lot of the co-commentators and commentators when they talk about Leicester City about them just being almost a benchmark football club for how it's run. We've invested in the training ground as opposed to going out and buying £250 million foreign players. It's like top to bottom, the club's being run correctly. And obviously sometimes we get a bit frustrated because we lose daft games, and that's infuriating. Sometimes we have to forget, we sometimes forget, don't we, that there's millions of other football fans supporting teams like Sheff Wednesday, Forest, Derby, Coventry, Birmingham, etc., looking at us and going, why can't we be like them?
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. We are so fortunate to have him. When we've been critical, we do have to remember that these are still halcyon times. 2 points on tactics. One for the defence, Norm, for you. You've been, as we all have, quite uncomfortable playing 5 at the back, and he did do that again. Yeah,
and was uncomfortable when I found out it was 5 at the back. But, in Rodgers we trust. And again, it was obviously only against Sheffield United, but yesterday I thought it worked really, really well. I think it was exactly the right formation to play, and everything seemed to sort of fit in. Now, how it works against better sides remains to be seen, but it was good to see those 3 centre backs out out together. And all in all, yeah, I've got to take my hat off and say, didn't like it at the beginning, but it got us a 5-0 victory, which could easily have been 10. So, fair play, Brendan. Well done.
Bit like a night out with me, Tim, at the drinking Trumpwell's IPA. You don't like it at the beginning, and then by the end of it, you're thinking, this is just fabulous.
Is that the beer or you, Killer?
Me, obviously.
Good to get a word in for the sponsors, Killer. You never let us down. And Killer, what about Norm mentions playing against slightly better sides? So here's one for you. So we're all singing Kelechis' praises because he's got a hat trick. And for the record, it doesn't change a lot for me in terms of the requirement to be signing at least one striker going forward. But 4 years in, suddenly he's found his feet. What do we do, though? Because I think there has unquestionably been an improvement playing the two of them together. How's that going to work when Barnes, but particularly Maddison, comes back?
Don't know. Do you know what, mate? I was thinking exactly the same thing. And I think to some extent, playing with the three centre-backs, it gives you a bit more flexibility at the top end of the pitch about how you arrange things. So maybe there's a bit of flexibility there, but you're quite right. It actually opens up all sorts of dilemmas, Tim. Do we go out and buy a stellar striker in the summer? It is now a big question, isn't it? Because let's just imagine if we go and spend 40, 50 million quid on a striker, what does that do to the pecking order? And actually, if Kelechi Iheanacho is starting to hatch and develop as a player, do you want to actually put him back to square one and just chop in a totally new name? It's to some extent it does create more questions than it gives answers.
Also, we even found a use for Perez. He scored his last 3 goals against Sheffield United.
That's a terrible stat, by the way. When that stat was rolled out, if ever you hear that, you've got to think to yourself, because it's not like we played him in the cup. This is just league goals. His last, and they've turned around and said, and the commentary team turned around and went, Sheffield United must hate Perez. And I felt like I said out loud, yeah, but everybody else loves him.
Perhaps they can sign him next year for the Championship.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also, just a quick word. He didn't get an awful lot of coverage, but great to see another youngster coming through in Leicester Bella, and good for him and good for the club to see all of those coming through. I was quite surprised England under-21s was announced today. Not a single Leicester player in there, which was a shock. But we've got a few foreign players, haven't we? Which probably says something about the stature that the club's starting to get, where you've got very high quality foreign youngsters now coming to Leicester. So I took that as a bit of a positive.
Good time for him to, I thought it was really good management as well. Good, because Rodgers could have just played a safe call. What a great time to bring a young player on, because there's no risk, is there? You can just turn around to him and go, just let your hair down, enjoy yourself. And as a consequence, he's now got a bit of game time playing for the first team. He looked very comfortable. So, I think he's got that out of his system, and we can expect bigger and better things.
And we've already got quite big, large things going on, because we thought we would have a little look at the situation in the Premier League, where we are and what our chances are of ending up in the top 4. So I started doing a little bit of research around the numbers and what's required. And over the past few years, the requirement to finish in the top 4 has been artificially high, actually. You needed an average of 70 points over the last 6 years. But going back, I was going through Fox's talk over the week. I'll make a big shout to a guy called Lester John, who's done a stunning amount of research around this. And he'd actually gone back much further, and I've corroborated these numbers. If you go back all the way to the 95-96 season, you generally need 68 points to finish 4th. So Leicester City are currently sitting on 56 points from 29 games. 68 required. And all of a sudden, if it is 68 points, and I think there's a few journalists have been suggesting that the total this year could be a little bit lower than it has been in the last 6 years, where I guess Man City and Liverpool have artificially changed that, then we really are in quite good shape. A couple of things to watch out for. I don't know if you're aware, but if non-top 4 sides were to win both the Europa League and the Champions League, that would knock out the 4th place qualifying. So the first question for you, Norm, is, Are we worried about that? We have got 3 non-top 4 sides, as it sounds, in good positions in those being Liverpool in the Champions League and perhaps more practically Arsenal and Spurs.
I can answer that very succinctly, Tim. I don't think Leicester should be worried about that. I think the team that finishes 4th could be worried about that. I think Liverpool are a bit of an enigma, aren't they? We know they have got an abundance of talent, and they could go on and win the Champions League, and Spurs or Arsenal could easily win the Europa League. So, joking aside, I think this could be. I think it has happened once before. The second time where a champion, like you say, that could happen, where teams outside the top 4 do end up winning both the European trophies. So it could be an issue, yes.
And if that did happen, again, based on the same period of time, all the way back to 95, 96, at that point, the requirement to finish 3rd would go up to 73 points. And that feels like a significant jump. So, Killer, before the Sheffield United game, we needed 15 points, and that worked out at 1.5 points a game required. Dead simple. Obviously, got 3 of them against Sheff U, but we've also got Man City at home next. Yeah. So those 2 games could net out. If we were to lose to Man City, you could say we'd be on target for the 1.5. So let's have a little look at our fixtures going forward then, guys, and see what we think. I'll throw each of them at you. Killer, are we going to perhaps think Man City might be tricky?
Well, can I just say, but there's 9 games left, isn't there? There's no point talking to Norm because he's going to say we're going to get 27 points.
Well, that's why I came to you, really.
Yeah. In fact, do you want to disconnect him and we'll reconnect him for the next feature?
I do actually have something to say about that. And what I was going to say is, of course, when it comes to doing the score predictors, I will predict us to win every game. But I have tried to be a little more sensible with the fixtures coming up. So a
5-5 draw at home to Man City.
Actually, and I think I might be jumping the gun here, Tim. I think you're going to ask us how you think we're going to do against Man City and perhaps some of the other teams coming up. I think
don't tell me.
I've actually put us down for a loss against Man City, but not on the predictor. When it comes to predicting it will be a win.
There's an imposter on the show.
Just to be reasonable.
And then for the balance of April, Killer, we've got West Ham, West Brom, and Palace. So West Ham away, and then West. Those games look pretty winnable, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And actually, you look at the whole thing holistically. Take Man City out of it, gets a bit spicy at the end. We know that. But actually, after West Ham's going to be competitive, we know that. But thereafter, winnable. West Brom, Crystal Palace. I'm sure then you're going to obviously come on to the hapless Southampton, Newcastle as well, but obviously hapless. So all winnable. I've got to say, I'm really, really optimistic about it.
And Norm, we might need to do pretty much what Killer said, because we will then finish up with Man U and Chelsea both away, and then Spurs at home to finish, hopefully in front of some Foxes.
Yeah, I mean, look, the run of Palace, Southampton, West Brom, Palace, Southampton, and Newcastle. There's the 12 points we need to get on 68. Everything else kind of is a bonus. I mean, I think a point away at West Ham would be good. The end, Man U, Chelsea, Spurs. Look, Man U and Chelsea, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't get draws against those teams. And also, we might be at the point where they or us have already, or certainly Man U and us have already qualified for the Champions League. Who knows? Yeah. Spurs on the last game of the season, I think it's pretty certain that Spurs won't have anything to play for. So I don't think Spurs is going to be the big, who's going to finish in the top 4 game that it might have been. If Spurs had been 5th and we'd been 4th with a point difference, goodness me, it becomes a real tough game. But I think they'll be out of it by then.
I agree, Norm. I don't know if you saw any of the game yesterday. They were absolutely hopeless. I mean, North London Derby, no, there was no fans, but they were lame. And you just look at it and you think to yourself, they're so erratic, it's difficult to make a case of them getting top 4.
Yeah.
And to support that point, so I've already said that going into the weekend, we needed 1.5 per game. But have a listen to this. So Chelsea require 1.9 per game to finish 4th. Everton 1.8 and got an extra game to play. West Ham 1.9. Liverpool 2.5. By the way, Liverpool, by the way, have got the fewest points in the Premier League since the start of February. How about that for a stat? and then coming down to Spurs, Norm, to your point, they need 2.1 per game. Over 2 per game starts to feel a bit tricky, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say on that as well, just to kind of, you're talking about 68 points. If we looked at 70 as an almost certain, qualification figure, Liverpool to get to 70 need to win 9 of their 10 games. Spurs need to win 8. I mean, they're figures that simply, with teams in that kind of form, it's just not going to happen, is it? It is ours to lose. We're on good form. We're actually pulling away from these teams. Over the last 5 games, it's only Man City and Man United that have actually got a better record than us out of the teams that are challenging. We've actually pulled a point further away from Chelsea and West Ham, for instance. So, all in all, why is our form going to dip and no one else's? I just can't really see it.
No, and the other thing I would say as well, Tim, is just look how well we've performed away from home against the big clubs. So all of a sudden, you look at the games we've got at home. I know we've been really erratic at home, but, you do look at it, don't you? You think, we've got Southampton, though. We've got Newcastle. We've got West Brom. I mean, these are poor teams, And so then when you look at the away games that we've got, you think to yourself, yeah, Man United away, they're not going to fancy us rocking up. Chelsea away, they're not going to fancy. These are all they're no different from Arsenal, Spurs, Man City away, where we've gone and won. So I just look at it. I just think if you're a betting man, you would go, yeah, I think Leicester are going to get that 3rd spot.
I mean, that's a great point, Killer. And also, we're just talking about Leicester's fixtures here. I mean, what I'd also say is, look at Chelsea's. 4 of their last 6 games are against West Ham, Man City, Arsenal, and Leicester. Now, what we've got to remember is West Ham, Chelsea means only one of those teams can win, or a draw means they've both dropped points against us. Who's going to beat Man City? I mean, Arsenal are on form at the moment. They've got a really difficult run in, as have a lot of the teams. So, I think that it's right that we concentrate on us, but the other teams are just not going to be pulling up the points that they're going to need.
Yeah, it's a good point on Chelsea's fixtures, Norm. Conversely, the ones to watch, it sounds bizarre to say, it could be West Ham. After West Ham players on the 10th of April, the remaining fixtures are Newcastle, Chelsea, admittedly, Burnley, Everton, Brighton, West Brom, and Southampton. And it doesn't, we're into the end of the season now. It doesn't feel to me like there's going to be a collapse from any team now. There's only a handful of games left. So that West Ham needing 1.9 points per game. That feels doable for them. Maybe it's Chelsea they're going to knock out.
Yeah, be nice.
Could be. We will see. My own view, I think, starting to get the injuries back, I'm feeling much more confident that we'll be fine. And those 3 points at the weekend haven't half put us in a great position. So well done, Super Bren and all the team. You guys have been having a think about a day you might like to revisit, haven't you? And we've called this Groundhog Day, Norm.
Yes, we have a sort of a day that incorporates a decent football match, but also perhaps some other enjoyments as well. That just made it a day that if you kept on reliving it, it would still be as good as it was the first time. So I've actually gone for the Leicester versus Palace playoff final. I think for me, it's I just kind of remember the day, like the excitement of getting up, knowing we're going down to Wembley. Whilst I was sort of 25 at the time, still putting on the face paint, drinking, travelling down to the game, such a massive party atmosphere, and Leicester at Wembley, it was always great, wasn't it? Always everyone there, all the fans, all dressed up, such superb reception for the team, and so you get all that build up, all the excitement, getting into Wembley, and then you find yourself 1 down after about 14 minutes, and you start to worry and thinking, "Oh no, is this going to be one of these awful days?" and it just drags on and on and on. And then you get a late penalty, you score it, it takes it to extra time. You're thinking, oh, yeah, here we go. And then you're thinking, oh, goodness me, here come the penalties. And so it's just, for me, the whole day, just an absolute roller coaster. Martin O'Neill pulls out has this brainstorm of let's substitute our goalkeeper on 119 minutes. So little Kevin Poole gets replaced by Kelechis, who's very, very tall, if you remember. I don't...
Spider.
Indeed, that is indeed. Yeah. And I don't believe he actually had a touch of the ball which is why it made the day for me prior to the wonderful journey back to Leicester and the partying in Leicester afterwards, was Stevie Claridge with 11 seconds to go, shinning the winner in the most lucrative game in football history to see a team get to the Premier League. And sure enough, we were there. And it's just a day from start to finish that if I had to keep going back and doing it, I would enjoy it just as much. In fact, I'd enjoy it more because I would know that we were going up to the Premier League rather than having to wait until 11 seconds of the game to go. But just such wonderful memories. And goodness me, I could have picked so many. But for me, I think that's where I'd go.
Absolute legend of the club, Claridge killer, wasn't he? Fantastic.
Yeah, and Martin O'Neill. And let's not forget as well, that game was the gateway, wasn't it, to League Cup wins, Europe, and Norm's absolutely spot on. If Claridge shins that and it goes over the bar, and O'Neill's gamble of bringing Spider Kelechis on in the last minute doesn't pay off, and we have another season in the second tier, I mean, Leicester's history, or a large part of it for the next 5 years, would have been totally different, wouldn't it?
It would. How about you, Killer? What are your memories?
Well, Norm turned around and presented this idea to me and said, I want you to think about a Groundhog Day. I want you to think about a day which was so fantastic. You want to relive it for the rest of your life. So initially I thought about when I was 13 and I was wandering through Knighton Park on my own on the way round to a friend's, and there was like a colour publication just caught my eye in a hedge. And I walked over to the hedge and I grabbed the colour publication out. And anyway, I was telling Norm that story, and he went, no, it's got to be football related. so I won't talk about Razzle magazine, and I think that's a different show. So I'm going to predictably pick the Everton game, and Norm would have picked this as well, but we very gentlemanly said only one of us could have it. So we did a virtual arm wrestle. I won. So I'm going to talk about the Everton game, because let's be honest, it was just something off this planet. It still feels to me, Tim, the Everton game where we won the league, it still feels like some really bizarre dream that's very vivid, that deep down never really happened. And I've just captured 7 key points of the day that I just want to share with you, just things that I will literally take to the grave with me. Number one, I remember meeting a bunch of mates in a pub in town, and I got off the bus and the place was just heaving. I think it was a 4 o'clock kickoff, and it was noon and it was heaving. Pubs were just getting closed down left, right and centre. And I got off the bus and just near the station, and I looked round and I thought, I'm seeing something really weird. I've just spotted 200 Italian fans walking down the road, singing Italian songs, waving Italian flags, and just clearly looking Italian. They've sort of got that dress, haven't they? The white sneakers, the tight jeans, the bubble coats. And suddenly realised that Ranieri winning the league meant so much to them that a load of it, it's not just one or two, 200 had flown in, which again was just like, wow, unbelievable. Met a group of mates in the pub, and again, that was special. A friend of mine had flown in from Dubai just for the game. 2 guys had come down from Scotland. One was a lifelong Leicester fan. The other was just a mate. He's a Rangers fan. He hadn't got a ticket. He said, I've just come down to celebrate the day with you. I just want to be part of your day because I know how much it means to you. Just absolutely fabulous. then from when we eventually got out of the pub, eventually, he says, just to get round the ground, and I've never seen anything like it, because everywhere you looked, there was a different little foreign press crew with some guy with his microphone talking in some weird lingo, obviously about the Leicester City story, and you kind of suddenly realised that it wasn't just massive news in Britain. It was massive worldwide news, that the world was absolutely captivated by this 5,000 to 1 underdog story in the most competitive league in world football. So again, that was fantastic. Next point, again, I will never forget, waiting to get in, just queuing back from the turnstiles. And all of a sudden, the queue just stopped. And I was about 4 away from the turnstile. And I just turned around to the steward and went, "What's going on?" And he just said, "I can't let you in." I said, "Well, why?" And he pointed through to the concourse, and I looked through, and it was just heaving. He said, "I can't." When you look through, you could just see blue smoke everywhere, and it was just jumping up and down. And I went, "Oh, right. When do you think we can get in?" And he went, "When it's safe." And I went, "Good luck with that one."
I bet you were panicking, Killer, weren't you?
Well, I was, yeah, and I wanted to be part of it. I think that was the key. I got in, and I've got to say, I've got some fantastic video footage of the concourse. It's still my favourite bit of the day in a lot of ways, because it was just sharing it with Leicester fans, and everybody was. It was just an incredible party day. So that was the next one. The Nessun Dorma bit still gets me every time. When somebody will lob it on social media, you just look at it, don't you? Ranieri's sort of like there with his mate, isn't he? He's trying to get the Leicester crowd to calm down and be quiet, which is a job in itself. I mean, everybody was about 12 pints in each, you know what I mean? But then getting the Nessun Dorma was just incredible. And one of the other things that I just loved about the day as well is quite often with games like this, the team obviously have been partying hard. Sometimes the game itself can be a bit flat, but au contraire, we were just brilliant. I mean, we played a very dispirited Everton team, as I remember, but played great champagne football. Won the game comfortably. I think Vardy stuck his penalty in Rose. Nobody cared really, and then the last part of obviously was lifting the Premier League trophy, the lap of honour, which seemed to go on and on and on, and it was possibly only spoilt by the fact that the players did that horrible thing of bringing their horrible kids on, which I absolutely hate, by the way. I seriously, I absolutely detest. I don't have kids and I'm not a footballer. If I was a footballer, I would say to my missus, "Get those kids off the pitch. Don't want them. This is Dad's time on his own. Don't need the kids here spawning it. You've got plenty of other time to spawn it during the summer holidays." I hate to see kids on football pitches. I want to just see the players there celebrating with the fans. I don't all like this, holding kids with daddy on the back. Horrible scenes. But I'm joking, of course. I'm not. I don't know if I am. Anyway, aside from that, the unforgettable Everton game, Tim.
That was a very well described, apart from the kids bit. I quite like that. It's funny you say, Killer. You mentioned, we've never spoken about this. My favourite part of the day was being in that concourse before the game as well. It was absolutely the most incredible moment of being with your fellow fans in the best moment you will ever have as a club. Yeah. And it didn't really matter that there was about to be a football match going on afterwards. And that even beat the Foss Arms being drunk dry. Go on then, let's look forward, Norm, to a different competition, the FA Cup. Man U, who we never ever seem to be.
No.
Good as we are. But suddenly, after the weekend, got a little surge of confidence going on.
Well, you know me, I'm always confident, but I don't know what it is about Man United this season. They have this ability to keep winning games and still look very, very average. But I think I've got to say, I think this is a really, really good opportunity for Leicester. We've not beaten them since I think it was the Great Escape season, the 5-3, wasn't it? I think that's the last time we actually beat Man U. So that's sort of 6 years ago. But they've got, we're out of the Europa League, sadly. But maybe one of the blessings in disguise, as we alluded to the other week, they've got a very tough trip to Milan on Thursday. Now, I suspect they're going to be playing a pretty strong side in that game. And whilst we've all got a rest for the international break afterwards, I suspect that means that they're likely to come to King Power on Sunday with a less than full strength side. I think he'll rest 2 or 3 players, certainly. I think Leicester are in the position now with a week off to sort of galvanise after the thumping win against Sheffield United and a couple of weeks off afterwards. I see no reason why we will not go in with our best available team. Now, you know me, I'm not a fan of 5 at the back, but I have to say, after yesterday's game, I think that I would like to see us play the same team against Man United on Sunday, you know, barring like a player like Maddison being fit to return, which I don't think he will be. I think if they play that, and indeed he can get the better of Fernandes, you know, if we can shackle him and the defenders can cope with the pace of Man United, which I think they will. Fofana's no slouch, and nor Soyuncu, and with Evans marshalling them, I think this is the game where we end our nasty little run against Man U and show them how good we are. There's no need for us to be worried about this game. We need to go in, play our own game, and let's do the business. And I see no reason why we can't do that.
Killer, we've been saying all season that we've got a better team than Man United, man for man. And now they have I would say that a couple of their players have improved throughout the season. But I still look at it that we, as man for man, a much stronger team. They do seem to have a bit of an Indian sign over us. I don't quite go along with Norm on the resting players for this. I think Solskjaer will think a trophy is really important to that club. And they will also have 2 weeks off after. I've got a feeling they might play a full strength side. How do you see it?
Yeah, I'm half inclined to agree with you, Tim. I tell you, okay, this is going to sound really crude. I generally don't make predictions like this. Bruno Fernandes plays, I think they win. If he doesn't, and I do hope he picks, I don't wish ill on any footballer, but I do hope he picks up a little minor knock. I think if you take him out of their team, you take out their hitman. You take out their king assist, their king goal scorer. This is a midfielder, by the way, that's second in the Premier League goal scoring charts. It's absolutely he's like a one-man bashing machine. Take him out, we'll win. If he plays, I think we lose.
You know what, Killer? I started this piece off saying I don't know what it is about Man United, but I think you're absolutely right with Fernandes. He is that conundrum. He is the one that makes this very average side tick and keep winning games. And you're right. If he's not around, they're a different animal. And if he wasn't around for the running for the top 4, that's going to mean they struggle a lot more than we do. So yeah, very, very, very good point.
I also agree with that. I think they rely on one player more than any other team in the league.
Yeah.
I think without Fernandes, they're having a completely different season, because even their fans have not been entirely convinced by them this season, and they're second in the Premier League. It's very odd. Right, I'm going to ask you for your predictions for this game in the FA Cup, but I'm going to ask you for a prediction after 90 minutes only, so that the score at the end of 90 minutes. Before I do that, I'll update you on our predictor with Trump Wales IPA. And last week, we all predicted victories against Sheffield United, but none of us got 5-0 right. So we've moved on. Killer to 12 points, myself to 17, and Norm to 21. So, Norm, away you go with your Man United prediction after 90 minutes.
Just before I do that, Tim, very, very briefly, I do think that, I know it's at your discretion, I do think Killer deserves at least an extra point, because he did say he thought Iheanacho would get a hat-trick, and he did. So I think you perhaps need to consider maybe a bonus point.
God, do you know what? I've actually forgotten that myself. You're absolutely spot on.
You know what then? Because we've got the integrity of the competition, and I would have to talk to Trump Wales brand manager about this, no? Sponsorship,
which is me.
Well, we could call that goal difference in the event of a tie.
Yeah, go on. Given the fact I absolutely couldn't give a toss about the competition, I'm not bothered. So, but thanks, Norm. Appreciate
an excellent prediction. Some would even say you might be psychic. Well done.
Tell you what.
Let's go back a week.
Don't give us a point. Give us a point.
Incredible prediction.
Had he said 5-0 rather than 3-0, it would have been like I'd have been getting a little bit scared.
Kelechi, I forgot I said that.
Please tell me, Killer, please tell me you had some money on that.
No, because as with most things that happen in my life, I say things and then a second later I forget about them and just move on and talk a load of garbage about the next thing I'm being asked.
Anyway, very, very, very well done, Killer. A superb prediction, and this is also going to be a superb prediction. I am going to go for a 3-2 Leicester win in 90.
Very good, Killer.
Oh, I'm going to go Manchester United to win 2-1.
I'm going to also say that. Oh, sorry. No, I'm going to say Leicester to win 2-1. So you're going 1-2, Killer, right? Right. Yeah. Okay. It's a bit of a shake-up there. If you want to get in touch with us, it's leicestercitypubcast@gmail.com. Just remains for me to say thank you, Killer. Thank you, Norm. We're all off to put Kelechi and Nacho in our fantasy teams. See you next week. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the Leicester City Pubcast, please subscribe and tell everyone about it. If you hated the Leicester City Pubcast, please keep it to yourselves. See you next week.